Oh, hello. I think we're live. Right, I'm just waiting for Jules to knock on the door, but I think we're there. Let me just say hello to everyone on Facebook. I think I'm there. Yeah. Hello. Yes. Right. Now we just need Jules, and then we're away. Here it is. Here she is. Hooray! Right. Any minute now, Jules will be live to Facebook. It takes a while. Right. Here we go. Any second now. Hello, Jules. We're straight on live Facebook to Dogs Today Facebook page. Hello. And is that which little friend have you got there in the foreground?
That's a little Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell. Oh wow.
She was the baby in the Royal Variety.
Oh gosh, she's grown up. It only seems like 5 minutes ago to me, but it must have been a while ago. Right. The way I tend to do these, Jules, I don't know if you've sat through any of my epic interviews. Oh, you have. So you know you're in for the long. Yeah, the long. Yeah, I do tend to go on. So let's start at the very beginning. You were born. Is it in Blackpool? You were born. Yeah. Blackpool. And I remember talking to you about this many years ago, but I seem to think you didn't have a dog at home and you had to really work hard on your parents to get them to, to finally give in.
I actually, they bought me a Yorkshire Terrier and I was very disappointed.
Oh, no.
Because it was a horrible little thing and it bit everybody and nobody liked it. And it used to follow my dad about the whole day and it picked him out as this person. So I wanted a dog of my own and I wanted a loud one. So when I'd saved some Christmas money up and I went with the bus to town, you could do that in those days, go into the pet shop. Go into the pet shop and purchase a puppy. And I took it back on the bus home. It was a rainy day and I rolled it in mud and got it all wet on the way home in the park and took it in and announced that I found this dog. So that was my first dog. I had to make a lot of promises to people, of course. But we did find out it came to the pet shop and put 2 and 2 together because nobody got any Christmas presents, like £8.50 and £10 on the dog. So yeah, I was 15. That was my first and best. Obviously, the first dog is always the best dog, isn't it? And it happened to be a border collie cross.
So pretty bright.
Yes, very bright, very clever dog. She was a dog I started actually doing bits of film work with via the dog club, and she worked in obedience to the highest level. This is a little cross breed, but it was my first dog, my first training experience. She got quite far, but she was a fabulous dog, yeah.
Oh, so how old were you at this point when because you did what was your
12.
First film? Right. So what was your first film work then? What was that?
It was actually a horror story that came through the dog club, the Tower Dog Training Club. That I was 3 times a week at Tower Dog Training Club. I was fascinated with dogs and everything to do with training. And that was my evening out to go and watch the top handlers working their dogs and, dream about one day having a dog that's going to compete like their dogs and listen like their dogs. And somebody was looking for a little dog in a film role and wanted kind of a street dog type scruffy thing, and none of these beautiful dogs that were in the dog club. And there's me, 12 years old, sat with this scruffy little mutt. And he said, that's it. So that launched us into the movies a bit, yeah.
Wow. So when you were growing up, did you think, I want to work with dogs? That's really all I want to do. Or did you have any other ambitions that you thought?
No, primarily it was always dogs. I just didn't know really what direction. I wanted to explore all directions. And my parents were quite encouraging in that way. I started work at the RSPCA on a voluntary basis. I helped out at the vet on my free day and at weekends. I wanted to know a lot about the medical side and a lot about rescue. I was really good rescue, and there were so many hundreds of dogs, especially talking 30 years ago. Plus, there was many dogs. That once the kennel was full with put to sleep, many dogs were overlooked because they were badly behaved in the kennel situation, or in a commercial kennel situation, they were stressed or barking and spinning around. Those kind of dogs don't get looked at. People walk past, and they look for the sad reserve of the dogs that look sweet. And once you get these busy dogs out of the kennel environment and you get them on a lead and you take them outside, you see a totally different dog. And I was convinced that with a bit of training, that these dogs wouldn't get overlooked. So that was where I really started things off. And I stayed there, about 6-7 years before I actually moved more into the training line, more specifically into the training.
So, was this voluntary that you were doing?
Well, I actually worked there 6 years. I went up the ladder, started as a kennel maid, cleaning kennels, and worked full time for the OSPCA in Blackpool also, until I was assistant manager when I left. So I'd worked my way up the rung, and then again I had to make a decision: do I want to stay in this scenario? Do I want to become a manager, or do I want to branch out and do something else? So I felt I'd learned what I could do there, and the people I was working with, it was kind of all changing the branch and being updated. And I thought, I had to stay for all that renovation-wise and changes-wise, or now is the moment to move whilst they're doing other things. Or she falls off the table, that doesn't make good TV. So I did. I stayed there for 6 years, and then via the RSPCA, I was contacted by somebody in Belgium and offered me a year's work while somebody was on pregnancy leave, to come and work with training dogs at the training centre in Belgium. And I thought, great, do it while you're young, got no time, and that's what brought me out here, and I made a lot more contacts and a lot more experience. Also going to shows, but also training gun dogs, one of the most difficult breeds to train, of course.
So what sort of training were you employed to do back then? Was it
most of it for the first almost 20 years? It's any dog that comes in to a trainer or for advice is usually a problem dog with either issues about fear, afraid, scared dogs, or aggression. The dogs that are normal, that are stable, they don't normally come to a training centre, of course, or need extras. So you've got to remember, in those days, those were the days of check chains, brute force. You will do what I tell you to do. And it was, we went really through that change. I was very lucky with the timing, bridge-wise, that the positive was being recognised, that the dog and the dolphin book was being spread around, and people were getting into clicking and seeing that there was another way to develop your dog mentally than actually, forcing it to do something that it didn't necessarily do. And a lot of aggression and nervous problems are brought out by tackling it with aggression, of course, or frustration. A dog doesn't understand when his owner gets frustrated with him, and he can only fight or flee. So I was very lucky that I wasn't very long in training before it all turned around and almost fell into my lap. But this is great, you can work with dogs in a really positive way rather than a negative way.
And how did you cope with moving to a foreign country? Because did you speak any of the languages? How easy?
Not at all. And a lot of people had a lot of fun with me in the beginning because they got me to say things that I had no idea what I was saying. And until everybody, of course, collapsed in hysterics, then I'd realised I'd said something that's not very nice. The first year, of course, I was only a year there at first, and then I went back to my job in England. I did attempt slightly when I came more permanently to Belgium, and I took a job with the guide dogs. Then I had to learn Dutch, of course, because half of my clients are in the middle age. So at that time, nobody really watched TV. Of course, my child learned English on the TV more than she did at home. Yeah. Purely because, American movies, television, it's all stimulating to learn the language. But my clients fell into the category that they didn't have a word of English, so I had to struggle on. And colleagues would try and help me out by saying, it's okay, I'll speak to you in English. Yeah, but that didn't help me.
No, you have to
get over the barrier. I think for English people, a language is very difficult. We're not used to it. It's not put in early enough in school when you are a sponge for language. So I found the first 6 months very, very mentally tiring. I worked long days and I was trying to make myself. I used to have to go all the way around the houses to get to the point. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't have the vocabulary. So I kind of told a long story to get to the punchline, and people had to have, a little bit of patience. But I did get there. I got to the stage where I was going home with real headache in the evening, just from constantly taking in Dutch what they've said, trying to translate it into English, thinking of what I'm going to answer in English, and then attempting in Dutch to speak it. But I got to the stage where after 6 months, I was dreaming in Dutch, and there were English people that I knew talking to me in Dutch, and I was waking up thinking, oh, that's Emma, she doesn't speak a word of Dutch, and I was dreaming in fluent Dutch, and I thought, right, I'm already there now.
Yeah, that must have been a huge breakthrough. Yeah. So after a year in Belgium, you went back home again. So that must have been because you had all the freedom of being in a foreign country and an adventure, and then you had to go back home. Was that a bit of a
not really? I liked my job. I knew it was only a gap year really. At 15, I was still young, and I was tired of doing other things. I was a fanatic in my own sport, of course, in obedience. And for that year, of course, the pet passport scheme didn't exist then. It was a lot of paperwork and documentation, and there was quarantine. And Penny, this first dog at that time, was already, I think, 11 or 12 years old. There's no way I would have put my dog through quarantine. No. So she stayed at home with my parents while I did that year away. Mm-hmm. But I was desperate to get back to my dog because I thought, if anything happens to her while I'm not there, I would never forgive myself. So really, owning dogs put me off going out until the pet passport scheme gave me the freedom of taking them with me and coming back. There's no point in being able to take them with you and then coming back to work for 3 months in England and having to leave them in Belgium, which has got the same scenario reversed. So the pet passport scheme for me was fantastic. That gave me the freedom to do what I wanted.
So what work did you do when you got back to England? Were you back
again for the RSPCA? I was a long time working for the RSPCA, and then I did the last year. I worked at a quarantine kennels down on the Watford end in London end, and then the people I worked for in Belgium contacted me again and asked me to come and work full time and come back to them. So it took off there, and like I say, I left the country I think at 22, 23. And more based here in Holland. I have lived a fair few years in Holland. I'm working for a Dutch company. I was working for a Dutch company. Then I transferred to the Belgian guide dog school. Moved to Belgium, which is only literally 20 minutes. It sounds like you're moving the whole country, but it's really only up the road. And worked for the Belgian guide dog school for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And now I'm working again for the
Right. Because I remember last time I spoke to you that in that era, assistance dog trainers in England it really was still not really a career at that point. It was very difficult to earn enough money to survive.
Yeah.
And there were more opportunities in Europe because maybe the system was slightly different, and that it was less, well, from remembering looking this all up a few years back, it seems to be more integrated into the health system, that it's sort of not relying on charity as much, that if your health would be improved by having a guide dog, there is a part of there's a government payment that's able to be accessed by the company, by the organizations. Yeah. And there's sort of an integration there, that it's not all charitable donation. So as a trainer, you were able to actually have a real life. Is that true? Was that part of the attraction?
Exactly. Well, and not only that, there was, of course, I was in dogs and very little money in the first year, purely because you got up and you ate and you slept and you did everything dogs, purely because you loved dogs.
Yes.
You know, my mum even remarks now that I used to get my pay check in a little brown envelope, and I used to stack them on the dressing table. And they'd go unopened. I didn't need anything. I had my dogs. I went to dog club 4 nights a week. I worked from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night at the OSPCA. I didn't have time to do anything else.
No.
But of course, when you get older and you want to actually do and live properly and create a home and all the rest of it, you've got to earn. But everybody, there was far too much competition in the few jobs that there was. There were jobs about hearing dogs for the deaf. The Guide Dogs Association have many setups in various parts of England, of course. But it was very hard to get the foot in the door when you were just a wannabe and not actually proved yourself. Okay, you've been in the sport and you've been to a high level, but you're not proven in people skills. You know, training a guide dog or an assistance dog, you've got to be able to. I can't just train a dog up for a client with Usher syndrome. They're deaf and they're blind, and hand them the dog and say, "Okay, get on with it." I have to understand from the client's point of view as well what their needs are, what their frustrations are, and try and mix them together. So you need a lot of people skills working with dogs as well, of course, as you all know. It's not just talking about the dog, it's the one that's coming onto the line, of course. So yes, there was a lot more competition, and it was all down south, and I lived up north, real deep up north, in Blackpool seaside. So it was the case of, well, if I've got to move 5 or 6 hours drive away anyway, I might as well go where there are more opportunities to climb the ladder quicker.
Yes.
Which is why I exited. I did try in St Anne's again. I did it for a year. I did everything for a year at that age. I was St Anne's, Blackpool and St Anne's dog warden, and I thought, this is great. I know my own hometown. I've been growing up here. I can round up stray dogs. Teach people what things, what it's about, responsibility for the dog, and not having latchkey dogs, and informing the public about general things and being a help. But of course, that's a job that is very limiting, because you do have time to round up a problem dog or a dog that's crossing the street or causing an accident. But the rest of the time, the council fill your hours with going down sewer drains and baiting rat traps. And I spent more time climbing ladders and going down drains than I actually saw any dogs. So I thought, no, dog warden. It wasn't really recognised as a job in itself. Instead of taking that further, we kind of mixed that with another load of jobs that nobody wanted really. So I thought a board was better. And of course, the room that you have to travel here. I'm based in Belgium. Holland's 20 minutes away. France is an hour away. Germany is 40 minutes away. You're really central to, well, everywhere. If I do a dog show with my dog. I can decide, do I compete in England, France, Germany, Holland, where of all the surrounding countries. You know, I can compete where I feel like it. If the weather's better in France, then you go to France, can't you? And we've got that luxury, of course, here. But I do like the open lifestyle. I think the culture. Nobody. I always felt that in England nobody understood my sense of humour. Yeah, I just felt in Europe they took to me better. Maybe it's because I was a novelty and they've just been putting up with me for this amount of time.
No, well, I think that I'm from Liverpool, so I think that the north of England is like a different country to the south of England.
Absolutely.
People talk to each other in the north, they don't in the south. So it is, we are a divided nation, and the sense of humour is very different, and people are so serious, aren't they? But
I remember when I started work for Academic Animals. I worked many years in combination with my normal job for Academic Animals. That's a company that provides animals for TV and film and worldwide, travels with many animals filming. And when I started to work for the company, I had only met the wife because the husband, Roger, was working away for 3 months in Czech, making a Sigourney Weaver film. When he came back, he's a Londoner, she was Dutch. And when I came back, when he came back, and I'd been at base and I was fully feeling at home and chatting to the wife, who had really good English, luckily. But I was so really looking forward to working for an English guy. And he walked in, but he's a Londoner. So he walked in and he said 3 sentences, and I answered what I thought was the answer. And we both looked at Tinnika, and I said, "What did he say?" And he said, "What did she say?" We didn't understand. And both of us, being English, and didn't understand the word of each other's language, which is crazy, You think, like you say, a London accent is totally different, to a Northern accent. And they have no slang, which, that's the one difference with the language. My parents thought once I started speaking Dutch that I'd started speaking posh, because I'm from Blackpool, I shouldn't be speaking posh. But what you do lose when you're working in a second language is you lose your accent, you lose your slang words, because there's no point in using a slang word. A Dutch person would not know what you meant. It's not in the dictionary. So it tends to speak, Queen's English, so that you are understood better. So your pronunciation is better, and your wording is better. So you lose your northern twang, of course.
Yeah, I've found that when I first came down, people just kept trying to trick me to say certain words because they like to hear, hairbrush, or I don't know whether I still say it northern or not, because it got tiresome after a while, because they don't actually listen to what you say. They just want to hear you say.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love to hear.
To laugh at you.
Yeah, it was like, how rude, because I was thinking everybody speaks peculiar down here, and I don't sort of laugh at them and say, "Oh gosh, fancy saying it like that." But yes, as we get older, we get more kind, and it was just the novelty. They got very overexcited about it. Yeah. But I love to hear a northern accent now, and if I'm anywhere, I'm always going, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" And it's sounds of home.
It's surprising how quickly it comes back when you're Skyping with your parents or something, and all of a sudden you're back into your northern, your childhood.
Yeah, it is lovely memories. Yeah, it is. It's in there somewhere. So, guide dogs in Europe, how progressive were they? Did they have any amazing techniques that you were or was it just evolving when you first started?
It was evolved. It was about 10 years. You were busy about 10 years when I got here. I worked for the Belgian Guide Dog Centre, and that was set up by a blind lady, Adeline herself, purely because she had problems getting an official assistance dog. And
Right.
her first assistance dog was one that was exported, and she had permission to export from the UK.
Right.
And then she decided that people in Belgium and surrounding areas should, if they've got a right to a guide dog, they should be able to get one and not have to go to the length that she did with her dog.
Yes.
And all the expense and trouble of walking around with a white cane if you don't want to, if you want another way of doing it.
Yes.
So she set up the school, but various schools have been set up. Of course, we've gone through the years where a lot of people have branched out and tried to or set up individual private guide dog training, because the funds are there to the client. If they're insured, if they've got health insurance, they're allowed to apply for a guide dog if they need one. They're assessed, and the money's made freely available to them. So whether that goes to a private concern or an official school that's headed, by a bigger authority, everybody's free to get a guide dog where they want to. So of course you get a lot of trainers, jumping in on it, thinking, well, that's a lot of money that you get. 17,000 euros for a dog. I'm going to be a guide dog trainer. But of course, what they don't realise is you've got to maintain it for 15 years with each individual client. And if I train 10 dogs a year, those 10 dogs have got to function for the next 7 to 10 years. So you've got to be every 3 months to those clients. Now, if you've worked 5 years and you've put out 50 dogs, you've got to see those 50 dogs twice a year. Now, they might be at the other end of the country, of course. So if you're going to do the job properly, you can't do it as a one-man band, I don't feel. I like the luxury. We spent 10 years here building up a home environment with fantastic facilities, because not only did I want to be around my own dogs all day, but I wanted to do it from home. I didn't want to take dogs out of the commercial kennels that had been in a kennel environment for 24 hours and then brought out for an hour, try to achieve some kind of training and bond with the dog, and then put it back in the kennel and go and get another one. Knowing that they're going stir crazy for anything that's going on in that situation. A lot of guide dogs kennels have commercial kennels. They have to have somewhere to put the dogs when they weren't busy. But knowing dogs, they act like dogs. They run around, they get overexcited, they play too long, they hurt themselves, they need supervision. And I wanted to really, I think it was a lot for many dogs coming from the puppy walker situation, being a house pet and raised in the house with somebody for a year. Excuse me. And then it was big traumatic change for them to come into the school. Even if they'd had a brief weekend there, they'd lost their family, the rug was pulled underneath them. They were a relatively young dog, quite insecure. They didn't have enough knowledge to stabilise, and then they were sent out with different trainers to start the actual job. And I felt it was a really hard, some dogs didn't make it just because of that, which I thought was crazy, because you've got a year invested by the people that have raised the dog. So start off with, you owe it to them. You owe it to the breeder that's bred a nice pup, and certainly to the family that's put some time into it. And I really wanted to do it from home base, to have dogs as our own family dogs, and have the facilities to care for them properly and work out at home. So I was already working on that quite early. This is a great job, fantastic job, but there's a lot of travelling, and you need a good home base. You need somebody to be there for your animals. My dog's not used to being away, but if I tried to Czechoslovakia to do a film set and I take 4 with me, who's going to look after the other 8? Because they're used to being pampered and having people around and being played with, and their day being filled mentally and physically. So I really love how it's all evolved in the last years, because they've moved away from the commercial kennel thing, because you've proved that it works. The company I work for, Kraus Guide Dog School in Holland, they have completely moved away from an old commercial kennel situation. They've built a new complex where there's only dogs coming in that are going straight to the client. They're going straight from the private trainer. So they have 15 trainers like me that work from home. We take the dog from the puppy walker. We take it to home. We train it in between 4 and 6 months, and it goes directly to the client. So the dog is, day and night, the difference in the dog. It's not been stressed. It's not been traumatized. It's been modelled already from being birthed and through the puppy walkers, and it's already by the time it comes in our hands, it knows what its job's going to do. It's had it's had a plan right from the beginning, and it's not put in any stressful situation. So I love it now that it's not. I mean, if we think back when I just said we were talking about check chains and old-fashioned methods of training, and now you're saying, well, not even putting a dog in a kennel. It's not about putting a dog in a kennel. I have a covered exercise area where we can play if I'm going out to train a dog and it's raining. I can turn 2 or 3 or 4 dogs loose to play about and not get soaking wet, and have pipe music and balls hanging in and all the rest of it, amuse themselves while I'm away working on one dog. Of course, it's functional to be able to contain a dog. You can't just let everything run wild. I have dogs from a tiny, tiny dog to Mocha, a great big dog, of course. And you can't just say, okay, I'm just disappearing for now, I'll get on with it. But for the prison-like environment that you have for dogs, that's all disappeared. That's all disappeared. And I think in England too. I think
I totally agree, because I think the failure rate is so high because you break so many good dogs. Because
I think in the last 5 years, our school failure rate, apart from now and again, you get a genetically scared dog, a dog that no matter what you do, what kind of upbringing you have, it's just quite a scared dog. It's a nervous disposition. And that is proven that a genetic fear is something that you can hardly do anything about. Not saying it's not going to lead a perfectly normal life as a pet in a right chosen home. It's not going to be a dog that you're going to be able to take to the market every week and take on travels everywhere. It's quite happy being a house and home dog. And you can place them very, very, very successfully in that situation. Not every dog is born to be a guide dog, of course, or an assistance dog. But not every dog's born to be on TV or do dog downs either. So so they have a choice. But we very rarely lose a dog on anything other than health. So we can really concentrate on buying very good, well-bred puppies that have been health tested, that we know generations before that there's unlikely to be any problems. Of course, you can always have, Mother Nature is cruel, and sometimes you have an odd cataract or an eye disorder in a golden retriever or a hip problem. Even from 2 good dogs, you can have that, and certainly in retrievers. But there's been the last years, almost everything I've trained in the last 5 years have been dogs like your dog, poodle crosses, poodle cross Labrador, poodle cross, and not really for the health side of it or the disposition, purely because of the hair. Most people say, if it's possible, I'd like to do it purely because they don't shed. And there's nothing worse for the blind person than giving them a golden Labrador, because they can't keep the house clean. The dog gets off the couch and the couch is white. So we don't see that, but then the next visitor that comes in, think, oh, I live in a dirty house because the dog's been like on dark couches. But no, we do a lot of fosters, but almost everything that's, if it does fail the program, it's usually on health at 12 to 18 months, and very rarely, if you've done your job correctly on the steps, from birth to where it comes to a trainer, if you've done everything correctly, it shouldn't be getting thrown out there or overlooked because of the behavioural problem.
That's wonderful. And it's a much nicer life for everybody. I mean, it must be great to be able to to work, because I think now in lockdown, people have actually really enjoyed working from home.
Absolutely.
And it is actually a much better way if you've got family, if you've got dogs, if you've
it's quite difficult, I find, because people think you're always available.
Yeah.
And you've got to be very strict in the fact that I say, well, now I'm busy. You know, in the morning I'm out training my guide dogs, and between that time and that time I'm not available. Of course, you've got the flexibility working from home. If it's a boiling hot day, Friday we're given 36 degrees here. There won't be one dog that wants to go out at 12 o'clock and work in 36 degrees, whether they love it or not. So you've got the choice. That's the beauty and the flexibility. You can go out with that dog at 6 o'clock in the morning, and when the sun's dropped in the evening, you can go out at 8 o'clock at night, and you can train whenever you want. I do love the flexibility in it, but you've got to be clear to family and friends and people around you that they don't just think, oh, well, Jules is home because she's working from home, because other people can interrupt your whole day.
Yes.
And your whole day is gone before you know it. You think, oh yeah, I'll call in for a coffee, and then there's another hour of them, and they say, yeah, okay, I'm going to get on with the dog. So I am quite strong now. You know, the one thing is, and you've no weekends anymore. When you've got dogs, you've got no weekends. I quite often lose the day and think, well, is it not Wednesday today? And no, it's Thursday. It's very easy to lose the track of time, but you've got to be very strict on doing what you need to do and not letting people take advantage of you being there.
So career-wise, everything was ticking all the boxes. So at what point did you think, right, when you were doing obedience, when was heel work to music or freestyle? When was that kicking off? Were you one of the first?
I did obedience until I actually left full-time from England. And then I worked a couple of years at the job. And I got in touch with somebody that did an English style obedience, because we did a different type of obedience here in Belgium or Holland. And then I got in touch with somebody that was doing DOS, which is the Dutch Obedience Society, and they were running English type shows. So I could then, once a month, I could do just like an obedience show in England. It was held under the same rules. I could do my sport again, which I loved, but then my job moved over the border, and it was just too far to go on one visit. I'd be 4.5, 5 hours driving to get there, just to compete. So I had to give it up for a while, but I wasn't really, put off by that. I've always trained all my dogs a basic obedience, and I do like the exercise. I have my favorite exercises. I have my favorite tricks that I set in every dog. But once I moved, I went to work for the guide dog school in where I work for now, but then the first time because I've worked for them twice. When I first started with them, Martin Kaus was doing a TV program that was filming animals all around the world.
Right.
He went to California, and he came back from this trip, and I was working for his guide dog school at the time. And he came back from this trip, and we were always talking tricky. That was the whole thing then. We would talk behavioral stuff for hours. So we came back from California, and he says, and now I've seen something that's just up your street. I've seen this woman called Sandra Davis working with little border collie, dancing with a dog. I said, get away. He said, it's got obedience. She's got absolute control of the dog. It's actually doing tricks to music, and she's, putting her movement to what the dog's doing. And he said, with your background, obedience, loving trick training, and having such a rapport with your dog, he said that would be right up your street. I said, I hope you videoed it. I did better than that. He said, I brought a video back with me. So he gave me a VCR video of Sandra Davis, who was actually a Canadian, but she was one of the first people that brought it to anybody's attention, of course, before Mary Ray did in England. So I was already hooked. It was the minute I saw it, I thought, this is for me. And because there was no way of really doing my old sport of obedience in the area that I live, and having the showcase of working for somebody that had a commercial setup but was working on a TV program every week, I had the front for it. So every time I went into work and he wanted a filler or a gap in his program, he invited me into the studio with the dogs, let the music on in the background, and let's have him doing some tricks and some dog dance. So I could promote it. And of course, then the TV channels get a whiff of it and see a clip somewhere and say, will you come on the news? And you get to showcase it, what is a relatively new sport. But it wasn't until 2000, the year 2000, that the first actual competition event was organised. And it was attended by, I think, 200 competitors.
Yeah.
From both Holland, which was a mega big, for here, for such a small country as Belgium and Holland. It was held in Belgium, and there was so many competitors there. But it was the first one, and it kicked off, but it brought it to a lot of dog clubs that got a bit stuck in the way. If either they were old obedience dog clubs with the check chain scenario that they couldn't move past, or they were the new clicker training people that thought, well, if I click everything, it'll come good. Well, which it doesn't. You still need the behavioural stuff. You can't just click everything. You've got to be able to say when it's wrong. And there was no real interest. It was hard for little dog clubs to keep going at the time.
Yeah.
And unless people had a real problem dog, you didn't turn to that kind of dog club anymore. So it gave something of interest to all these little dog clubs to bring something in, a new sport, whereas all you were promoting was nice interaction with your dog, positive interaction with your dog. Do you want to compete with it? Okay. If you don't want to compete with it, you just want your dog to do cute tricks and listen to you when you're talking to it, then that can, and it kind of gave the little clubs new life when it first started. So I got involved the first couple of years really promoting that and teaching other trainers how to bring it in class sports, what to start off with. So again, busy, always for somebody else.
Oh wow! So, because there was at the beginning, Heel Works music was more like obedience, and it suddenly went. It suddenly took off and became much more artistic.
Well, it was in England because you're only used to what Mary did at first, of course. And Mary, a classic, perfect. She did the same thing that I was doing over here, brought it, in people's homes and gave people another out. A lot of people that came from obedience to do something like that, came away from obedience, thought, well, I'm getting older, I can't keep up the standard, I can't train 4 hours heel work every day, but I have a good basic obedience through doing obedience, which you still need for a dog dance dog as well, not everybody's cup of tea is enough peace at home. If you don't give them a job to do, you do herd your children all day and retrieve constantly all evening. You've got to have some input with a dog that's, that needs training. But she was doing it also quite classically. Heel work, the music was for her, who's been, a mega star in obedience. That was, of course, her forte. So she did the first versions of heel work music, and always my English friends from the dog world always said, yeah, but you're much more expressive and you do much more wild tricks. It's just that it started the other way around with us because we got the American influence.
I see.
The Canadian. And Mary made the influence in the UK. And it wasn't until the Pet Passport scheme kicked in and people from these countries could compete in England that you got a kind of a mix, that you got people talking together and saying, well, I quite like your style and I'm going to put more freestyle into it. And then they eventually split the divisions. So if you like to do the classic heel work to music, you did your 10 position heel work to music. And if you had a dog that couldn't, achieve that or wasn't good in that, but was a very good trick dog, and if you put a story to it, there was still an outfall that you could go into and see that. I've never been, I was never like, even when I was young, like the American lady that danced with the dog. She was a proper dancer. She was a ballroom dancer that, knew how to move with a dog, and was fantastic. I got into making up stories and giving it a theme really quickly because I cannot dance. And certainly not with my dog. So you have to get a little bit more. Yeah, but you're giving other people an out. I've always said that dog dance is a sport that's for old and young. That is really true. You can be whatever age, you can have whatever breed. You can be a Great Dane. You just choose a different style, a different type of background music, and you can still have so much fun with your dog doing it. And there's not that same competitive drive, I don't think, as there is in something like obedience, where you're only aiming for the top. Here you're just aiming to have a nice routine and put it together that people. It's a spectator sport.
Yes, it definitely is. It's a big draw. So, how did you get into the Britain's Got Talent competition? Because that's a different ball game, isn't it? So,
well, to be honest, I was asked many times via dog club or via work or via dog people or other acquaintances that'd been on the audition, and they said, "Why don't you go? Your dog's the top winning dog in the country in shows all year. Why don't you take that piece off?" I mean, he was at the top of his career at the time. He was, I think, 6.5 years old, 7-year-old. He'd done everything, won everything. He was a champion in 4 different countries. What else are you going to do? So I thought, well, okay, we'll audition. And I applied at Belgium's Got Talent.
Right.
So I went to the audition and a few with the other, like 3,000 people outside. Finally got in, did my interview. I was told that I learned so much from that first time because, of course, what do I do? Naively, I set in all my big wow factor thing. I thought, there's no way, if only one dog is going to go through, and we don't want to make a dog show of it, it's going to be my dog. So I start, curtain revealed, and the dog is stood in a handstand, a freestanding static handstand, balancing on its nose in the middle of the stage. Not a movement from the 4 judges, not a smile or a gasp of how is that possible and how does a dog do that? I'm the only person in Europe at the time that could do a handstand, something that was forbidden in England.
Yeah.
Me coming out doing bizarre tricks, and they were not impressed at all. And the Belgian judges, one of them said, "Well, I do love dogs, but I don't agree with dogs on stage." So I thought, well, okay. I agree to a certain extent, purely because I'm in the film industry. I know what a busy environment it is. You've got to have a very, very stable dog that can do all that. You can't just take a pet dog and land yourself backstage on the TV series and, have a live audience at the back. You're all at the back. You hear every camera dropped, everything moves. You've got 100 people around you behind stage and many, many more along the way. Your dog's got to be bomb-proof. It's got to be completely bomb-proof. But it's also got to be able to work under that distraction. So it's not for every dog. I've seen a lot of dogs really get really scared and worried about an environment that is not being brought into. Of course, me doing odd film work, I've always, when I have young dogs, if I take another dog to do a film work or a commercial, I always take my young dogs to be on the set to get used to that early on. So my dogs have that advantage, of course. Yes. But I thought, the dog was stable. He had to walk through 3,000 people to get through it. It still went into a fucking handstand when I asked it to, in front of a live audience, and they weren't blown away. I did get through, and they said I was, I was going to go through to the film department. But I thought, well, if one's already said she likes dogs, but she doesn't like them on stage. Another guy called Dan, he's an American, but of course no, it's an English guy. It's an English guy on the group. And he said, well, I'm a cat person. So 3 out of the 4 replies, and I'd really done the best that I could do. I didn't actually hold anything back thinking about the second thing, display. So I thought, well, okay, we'll be out of here. So when he called me back, I refused, and I didn't sign the contract for Belgium's Got Talent. And I kind of thought, well, it's not for me, showbiz. And then I thought, well, people like dogs in England a lot more. You know, it's more open to see dogs.
True.
I was doing a lot of dog film work in England, and they're a lot more used to it, and it's been normal for England. I've probably got a better chance in England. My parents were getting older, so I thought it'll never get further past the audition stage. But I had the chance if I wanted, because I was living in Belgium and working in Holland at the time, and it was all over the place. I arranged to do the audition and combine it with a visit to my parents. And I said, if you let me do the audition in Manchester, really early on was the first audition, then my parents will be able to at least be there. If I go onto the lives and it's down London, I mean, my dad's in his 80s, he's not going to be able to follow all that or get down and move that. It'll make their day going to the studio and watching a live audition, invite all the family who I haven't seen for a year, and we'll make a big bit of a news up of it. So I went and did the audition in Manchester, and Simon wasn't really that impressed to start with, but of course it's all edited a little bit for TV, and we take out the good bits, because his first words were, well, it's a little bit like carnival, or a bit like a fair, you know, a bit cheap and nasty, you know, cheap and nasty props, and I came away thinking a bit disheartened, because I'd done a dog catcher routine, and I'd actually won the Crufts with the dog catcher routine in 2013, and I'd made a kind of short stage version of it, and I thought the idea is really nice, and people will know what you're doing. You can bring a bit of humour into it, chasing the dog around with a net and stuff like that. So it went down with everyone well, apart from Simon at first, but I think he was being a bit reserved, because he's very into his dog act, of course, so he's already setting the category quite high.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of sat there from impressing them. Come on. So we did our audition and got through there, which left me in kind of a predicament, because then I hadn't got through in Belgium. I'd declined to take part in Belgium, but then I got through in Manchester and gone through to the first cut. But of course, a lot of people fall out at that next stage.
Yeah.
Because there's many people get, you know, votes and you go through, and they expect to then go into the live shows. But of course, we cut about 200-300 people out to that first 70 cut. And then you're invited to come back to the reveal to see if you're actually going to go on to the live show. So I thought, well, don't get wound up about it. And to be honest, I put it away, got on with my job, and I forgot about it, because that was early or late in that year. And it wasn't until March or April I was contacted from, we're going to do the reveal, will you come back over for the reveal show? So I said, yeah, okay. Thought a night out with the girls, get a plan in, while a trip home, and then I got through to the reveal, and I thought, oh shit, now I've got to get moving and make some shows, of course, because we're going to be at least one more time live.
Yeah.
And everybody was ringing me, because I'd been on the Saturday night. The audition was played on the last possible Saturday, the week before the live show. So the live started on the Monday, and the last BBC audition started with or ended with the reveal show, and I still hadn't been seen. So everybody was ringing me saying, "Are you sure you've got through? Because you've not been on the telly." And next week they're advertising. Of course, I didn't watch English TV when I was done. I came back to Belgium, or I was in Holland, and I didn't see anything advertisement-wise. So they said, "Are you sure you've got through, because you've not been on TV?" And it's coming to reveal. So I rung the programme and said, "What's going on? You've told me you've got through. You know, am I wasting my time?" No, we always save a couple of unseen acts for the reveal show, because otherwise it's just a reveal show. You've got nothing in between. So we save a couple of auditions for that last show. So on the Saturday I was played, but the Saturday that I was shown on English TV was the day I travelled to go to the live show. I just arrived in the hotel room. I just opened the door and dumped my bag down, and I'm watching my own audition on English TV. I thought, oh no, it's just gone out. And on the Tuesday, of course, I only had 2 practice days. On the Tuesday was my first live show, and the audience voted me through, which was, from then on, I don't think my head was normal. From the minute I got there, from seeing the audition on TV, it kind of hit me that it was all real. And then I don't know where I was for that whole week. It was like magical and special and something you only, go through once in your life. It was a fabulous experience. And we were treated like royalty. Everybody that takes part is treated like royalty.
Oh.
But it was a roller coaster, of course, of emotion. And it was lovely to do the show. And I'm really glad it came off okay with the dog and everything. You just wanting, it's hard to do live show. I'm used to working for film, and if it goes wrong, you take another take.
Yeah.
You go and take your dog out for a coffee break, you come back, you give it a drink, you say, oh, time out for 5 minutes, give the dog a, go play ball with it, relax it again, come back into the studio. You don't get that at BBC. It's a circus, and it's loud, and it's busy, and it's a live show. So that's even for me, that was quite shocking from Wolves. Really taking a gasp from, wow, this is real, and I'm going to be stood there when the curtains go back. You're stood there for a live audience, and it's televised. It's easy not, to fall into distress. And I just took myself back to all those years ago in obedience, where you get in the ring and you count to 3, and you take a deep breath, and you just close off everything around you and just concentrate on the dog. And thank God that the dog's just carrying me through it, really. You know each other that well, and if I forgot something or I made a move in the wrong direction, he's just used to, steer me the right way. He came out the door, and if I forgot the command to say, get in the cone, he'd look at me as if he looked stupid, and come on, just go and ram his head in the cone just to show me what he's doing. Luckily, they did it. So we got involved quite early on, but like I say, I kind of shelved it and forgotten it. And then I was confronted by, oh God, now the lives have started, and we've got to do something about it. But that week went really, really fast, of course.
So how many dogs did you bring over with you? Because that must just be
3 from the beginning. You've got to plan, of course. You've got to plan when you come over for the live show. Your audition has been taped. I always said from the beginning, I actually said on the audition, of course, you don't send out the whole audition, but I actually said if I do get further in the show, because I have a multi-dog household, I want to add more dogs each act, to tell the story
Yes.
in a better way or a different way. It gives me more flexibility with my storyline than just sticking with one dog. Now, Peter's a special dog, of course. He is a special dog. But I have other dogs that are very talented and special too. So when I came over for the lives, of course, I had to bring any dogs I'd written into any script. So for the live show on the Tuesday, the Toy Story, Chase was written into that story, so he had to be in. If I was good enough and I got through to the final, my final story had 3 dogs. So I had to come in. I only had one chance to come in with the dogs, of course, so they all came in the off chance that I would get through. I didn't know on the Tuesday that the lives, that the public would vote me through, of course, did I? So I didn't actually, you have to practice your live show and your final just in case you ever need your final. Even so, singers and dancers have to do that, of course. So you have to bring any props or equipment and costumes, and in my case, dogs that you might need. Do you get to the final, of course? So Skippy went along for the ride as well.
So, did they put you up in a nice hotel with all these dogs?
Always the Hilton, fantastic.
Wow.
Always the Hilton, and they're so lovely for the dogs. And you wake up right outside the football stadium and walk on the football stadium green with your dog. So they're very, yeah, like I say, we were treated like superstars. Nothing was too much. And the studio was within walking distance. And it was too far for a little Skippy with his 3 legs. So we sent somebody to carry him so that I could concentrate on the other dogs, because there was a big football match on at the time. And I was frightened of him, getting trampled on or trying to carry him through crowds and still leaving dogs. And we had enough people with us, luckily, but we sent somebody straight away from the studio to assist us. So, yeah, like I say, royalty.
And did you, because you were instantly famous, really, so did you find loads of people wanting to have their photos taken with your dogs? And
it was completely madness. It was completely madness. It's something, I'm always low key, Beverley. I always push the dog into the spotlight, but I prefer to be in the background. I don't particularly like being in the spotlight. I'm the first to put the dog into a bag and say, go and stand next to the dog and I'll take the picture. No, I don't need to be with the dog on the picture. So it kind of, throws you into stardom almost immediately. And on the Tuesday, we won the vote. And just practicing that week and going to the studio, of course, every night there's a live show. Now, I wasn't on the Wednesday and the Thursday and Friday, but I could go to the studio and do any planning and check my props. And we had a private room that we could practice in and have the dog get used to all that noise in the background and stuff like that. But I remember coming round the corner to the studios, to the fancy studios, and seeing this great big waiting line queue, because of course there's people, they let people bums on seats to go and fill the show for the live show. So an hour before, the whole road's full of people waiting. And as I have come round the corner and Matisse is walking in front of me, the whole street erupted, Matisse, and everybody's calling my dog. And I thought, what is this? People running out onto the road to get a selfie with the dog. And I mean, quite even being rude, trying to snatch the dog off you. It's just like something I never see. That took a bit of getting used to. Luckily I had a couple of bodyguards with me. But it was amazing. You don't expect that. Going even into the park, I had to protect him or send him behind the bush to have a pee, because there was always a photographer that wanted to catch him in a pose that wasn't so, nice, and you don't want plastering all over the newspapers. So even taking him out, or even going for a quick sneaky cigarette outside the Hilton late at night, and in your pajamas like I normally do, I go down for a last cigarette in my pajamas, but you stood outside the Hilton, it's covered in press, and you don't want everybody to see your pajamas under your coat, and you were having a cigarette, of course. So yeah, it's quite, you've got no life anymore at that moment. I thought, oh no. I was quite glad to be home. But there's nowhere I can walk in England and still to this day everybody recognises my feet. Yeah. If I walk through Clough, I just get inundated with people and children, really young children that still remember the dog from the show.
It's a very distinctive name as well. How did you come up with the name?
It was actually from a film. Was it not Beverly Hills Cop or something? And there was a border collie in it called Matisse. And of course, living in Belgium, the artist is very famous. And when he was born, he was so perfectly marked, with a classical glaze and everything. I thought it's really just a painting. And I'd liked that name from the movie, so I thought I wanted something different, so it became Matisse. There's a lot of Matisses, of course.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of brown white border collies as well. Unfortunately. Yeah.
So did you meet any celebrities backstage? Did Matisse have any fans that?
Tons. I mean, everybody that took part in the show, of course. But I mean, my daughter was horrified that I didn't even recognise so many people, because I've been living abroad so long, of course, and working abroad. I don't watch EastEnders already more than 20 years. I don't watch Coronation Street. So these people coming, anybody coming up to you, it could have been anybody for all I care, you know. I don't know her. And pop stars, and little Mick sat on the floor, cuddling with my dogs, and I took photos just because I thought it was cute. This really skinny girl, you know, all curled up. A dog looked twice the size of her, all curled up upside down on the floor. And I sent it to my daughter, and I said, "Oh, my teeth is chilled," and she went, "Mum, do you realise who that is?" I said, "Well, yeah, it's our dog." No, look who's coming. That's little Mick. I said, "Well, who's little Mick?"
Oh, bless.
Terrible, right? Showing your age. So yeah, everybody involved with the show, but you do get amazing friendships. You know, I'm still in contact with a couple of people from the show, of course, purely because you spend a lot of close time with somebody in a stressful situation that you're all, you know, not feeling really at home in, and everybody leans on everybody. There's a really good, you know, a really good company for each other and settling and whatever. And the magician, what was his name? Remind me again. The magician, he was tipped for the top. He was second in my year, of course. He was on his phone all the time, and he kept saying, "Oh, at the bookies, you know, your rating's going up, your rating. Oh, the dog's going to do it this year. The dog's going to do it." And I said, "Stop. You know, I'd heard Callum singing, and I thought Callum's going to take it. You know, I was there just to show my second show. Really, I had no idea that it was going to go our way. Of course, when you actually see I mean, I'm a good dog trainer. I don't take that away from myself, and I've got a fantastic dog. But Pudsey had only won 3 years previously.
Yeah.
So I consoled myself from they're not going to choose another dog so close to having, you know, Ashley and Pudsey still doing the trips around England. They're still doing pantomime. They're still very much in the limelight. She's just bringing out her own little Pudsey memorabilia and stuff. They're not ready for another dog yet. So I was the only one really backstage that was really stress-free, because I thought I'm the one with the dog and the dog isn't going to win. So I can just go on and try and do my best and enjoy the show and play it to my audience like I always do, as if everybody out there is under 10 years old, and just go and tell your little dog a story and be in my element. So I didn't really have any stress for the final, because I thought I'm just a filler really, like you are on TV, because there's no way 2 years later another dog's going to take the top spot. And like I say, I'd heard Callum rehearsing, and I went in to see the stage lighting and things like ventilators on the floor, things that can be difficult for dogs if they're walking past and they get a gust of air, or there's a hot camera or a hot light or a table that you can fall over. I'm always big on stuff like that because I work in TV as well. Let's go and see what the last thing I want to do is my dog to walk out into the darkness because we don't see past the lights and fall off the stage. Going in, and I heard Callum Scott doing his rehearsal for the live show, and every hair came up on my arm. I was almost crying with emotion, so beautifully. And I thought, if he just was that tonight, he's just gonna have the whole of England in tears. It was beautiful. And he fluffed his words, didn't he, of course, on the final. So heartbroken for him, but like I say, completely. There was nobody more surprised than I was to still be there on stage, and it takes ages, and they've got adverts in between, and that big countdown from everybody on the stage from the final, and slowly everybody off the stage, and we stood in the last 3 acts, and I thought, well, yeah, it can't get any better for me. You know, in the last 3 is also good. I'm still not expecting the top spot at that point, because it can't be. You know, there's going to be somebody with a natural talent, a singing or a natural talent that's going to take it this year. So I was completely mind blown. I was still in shock. I don't know how I functioned in the program afterwards for the other program, for the late program for the GP. You have to go upstairs afterwards and go straight live to the other program. I don't even remember being there. I do not even remember being there. My head was so blown. Yeah, but it was fabulous.
So that was I mean, I think when you weren't thinking there was any chance, it's even more special, really. So,
of course, you go to take part, and you know, when I first got through the audition, and then there was a lot of time in between, I could again decide before I signed any big contracts or anything, am I going to go forward? And there was some time gap between my audition and of course the live shows, or the reveal and then the live shows. So I still had a say in do I take part or not. And you've got to be able to fit it into your agenda. You've got to be able to come over for meetings. You've got to be able to come over for things like contract signing, or even to look at where you're going to be training. Or there's a lot of to and fro. You've got to have the time and the flexibility for it as well, of course. So once you decide you're on board, you've got to go for it wholeheartedly, of course. So I really told myself, you know, it's given me two opportunities to show my skills, and put a very special dog. You know, we have dogs so little amount of years. I mean, they get so old so quickly. Now Matisse is within a couple of months 14 years old. You know, he auditioned at 7. He took part in the show at 8. You know, we're 5.5 years further than that now. He's almost 14 years old. He goes so fast. And he has been a wonderful, wonderful dog for me, a wonderful tool, a wonderful aid, fantastic for my job, you know, picking clients at ease. He's been a fabulous all-round dog, fabulous dog in the sport. And I really felt, you know, he deserves he is a special dog. I think, you know, every now and again, like I say, every dog is special, but every now and again becomes a very special dog, you know, a Sally, like you have. And one that's just imprinted on your life and shared your life and everything you've done. So I thought, well, I get 2 chances to show what a special bond we have together and what we can achieve together. And that's the audition and the live show. And we'll go for it. So I didn't promise myself anything further than that because I never presumed we would get further than that. And I hadn't even practiced my end show because I didn't think I'd need it.
Gosh.
So all of a sudden after Tuesday, because a dog that has to walk a tightrope has to walk it regularly because they have to walk like a cat over the rope. And you need those muscles. You need the muscles in the feet to be able to do it correctly. And I will never endanger one of my dogs. So I said straight away, and now we need to go and practice somewhere. Purely because we went to a hotel and asked permission because we could have done structural damage. 2 posts in the middle of a restaurant, 2 great big concrete pillars, and put up our setup and risk pulling the whole hotel down, you know, just to get up to 2 guide ropes to be able to do the tightrope training for it.
So there was so what was it like? So that when you got you weren't even sure you were going to get through to the live final, and then you're on the stage and you've actually
obviously I've been in for the reveal show, so I knew I was going to do that live final before I travelled for the live week. So I'd done my audition and then called back for the reveal. So we'd been in for the reveal show and they'd filmed the reveal show. And of course, that's still got to be hushed. Nobody can know who's getting through and not, because we play that out, of course, on the weekly shows. And they do 2 reveal shows before the live begin. So I was, of course, allowed to know, but you can't really tell anybody that you're taking part and who's got through and who's not, to avoid obviously disappointment. So I knew I was going through for the lives because I'd done the reveal. So when I arrived for the lives week, I arrived on the Saturday to prepare for Tuesday.
Right.
And that's when I first saw my audition go out. And that was when it almost became real for me, really. But like I say, everything was really centered about the Tuesday. I was hoping not to get too late a draw in the week. You don't know what night you're on. First we changed it and it was going to be Monday and then it was going to be Thursday. And I said, I don't care when it is, my dogs are prepped for it. They know what they've got to do. We only need to, go and have a little practice on the stage before we go on. And no worries. So, like I say, I didn't really have to look past that, really. No. I never went on VGT to have a life-changing experience because I'm already doing what I love, Beverley. I have created my own paradigm for my dogs and my work dogs. I love working from home. I love being here. The last thing I want to do is be traveling around the world constantly, living out of a suitcase and in hotels, even in the most beautiful places. They're not beautiful when you've no one to share them with because your family's at home looking after the rest of the gang. So I never really wanted that lifestyle of being, a star that was flipping from one place to another. I just wanted to show what I was capable of with a very special dog, which I achieved.
And you certainly did. So what was, because you must have been really up. When did the media go weird? Was that overnight? What
Yeah,
happened?
It was literally overnight. We didn't really have any. Well, of course, when you've won the show, first of all, you go to the other VGT program, the late one. So you're still in the studio. I didn't actually get the first drink in my hand for 3 hours after the show. I had, I was gasping for air because you're going from interview to interview. Then I was interviewed by last year's winners or the year before's winners, and then you've got to go with another presenter do this, and they need you in 17 different places. So you're literally just plucked backstage and sent wherever you need to do, and now you need to go there, and you just go with the flow. But it's all really just spinning around in your head, and it's not. I didn't even see my group of people, Roger and Christine, that were there to help me with my dogs and my props and everything. The last time I saw them was on stage, and 3 hours later I was still looking for them. It was just a bedlam because everybody wanted to speak to the winner and everybody wanted to take photos, and we needed several things you tied up to with the show, of course. They've got rights to use you first in whatever they need to do. So you go from one interview to the next. I hardly had any voice left. And by the time I got back to the backstage party, the VGT party, everybody was like packing up and getting ready to go, and I hadn't even drunk an orange yet, So it went late into the night before I think it was like, it's certainly 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we got back to the hotel. And of course, to go down the boarding route, your dogs have been in the studio. You've only had a quick pee outside where you've needed to. My dogs go when they're told anyway, or when they're asked to do. So it's easy in a strange place to get them to have a pee or something. But you want to give them some relaxed time. So I goes onto the field then at 3 o'clock in the morning and let them run off a bit of stress and be a bit of a dog, and look after your dogs and feed them something nice. And then finally fall into your bed at 4 o'clock, knowing that there's going to be a car at 10 to 6 outside the Hilton waiting to pick you up for all the morning programs.
Oh my goodness.
All the breakfast tea-free programs and Good Morning Britain, and you're taxied from one interview to another, and you find yourself kind of sort of sleeping in a makeup chair, thinking, what am I doing here? And you've literally had no sleep, and then you've got to go and do another interview, and how does it feel? Yeah, and like I say, that definitely honest, me being me interview on the couch, when she said, oh, and that trick with your dog, with the tightrope. And yeah, straight away, I've never hidden it. That was Chase. Yeah, of course that was Chase. He was in the Tuesday show as well. And I was just being myself, being honest, and never thought that the press would turn it upside down and try and make it. Yeah, even family and friends were ringing me, what's going on and where's all this negativity coming from? And I said, I was completely blown over, baffled by it. But everybody was baffled by it.
It was shocking.
Even the runner that I had at BGT and everybody around there, it was just silly from the press to do something like that. And why can't you be euphoric? Why can't you enjoy the minute? You know, I didn't get really 5 minutes before they pissed on my parade, really.
Oh.
Because it's not even settled when you're enjoying it before you get in a phone call saying the papers are just taken totally wrong, and you know, there's not a lot anybody can do with that. It's all going to be front page tomorrow, and yeah, and like I say, yeah, and euphoria is yeah, you're just wondering what went wrong, really. It was I don't really think about it anymore, purely because at the time it really got to me, because of course you put a year's effort into the show. It's taken a year of your life to prepare, get through your auditions, planning, build yourself new props, have an idea, get your ideas passed, a lot of mails to and fro, it's taken a lot of time and energy for a year. And then you're in the spotlight for one evening, and that same evening almost, it all goes arse up, really. And it was a total surprise, really, a total surprise that the papers decided to, take it and run with it in that way, because it was a shame for the show, because they're very supportive. They treated everybody with dignity and respect, and I had a fabulous, I would repeat it tomorrow. There was nothing negative, not one negative thing about the show whatsoever, that I regret. And I think it was a shame for the show as well, and everybody organising the show, running the show, everybody behind the scenes that goes so far to make a fantastic show. It was a bit of a black cloud hanging over everybody, really, because we totally didn't expect it. But yeah, like I say, I was very lucky in that I had to look after my parents, because they had press in the driveway and stuff like that. I was very lucky because I could get in my car and drive to the tunnel and bugger off back to Belgium, and it really didn't bother me a great deal, apart from the Daily Mail camping on my front lawn for a couple of weeks and following my child to school.
Oh my goodness.
It was doable from this side, because every time they wanted to annoy me, they had to send somebody from the UK or Brussels and hang over my gate asking for an interview or something. But I was more worried about my friends and family and certainly my parents in their 80s at home, because they didn't understand it.
No. I think that was probably the era that the press really were out of control. That there was it used to be a much more gentle press, but it seems that it almost got to eating people and sort of just wanting to destroy things. And there was I'm not sure what year it was when there was the dog that died at Crufts, the Irish setter.
Yes, I remember. That was in between, yes. And
it was like, it doesn't matter what the facts are. Let's put a shocking story on the front page.
They even tried to link that, because that is a way out coincidence, right? But that Irish setter that was taken ill, and it was already ill. It was taken ill. They only wait 2 days to do clubs and come back, so it was ill actually before it went. It just got worse while it was at the clubs and on the way home. The problem was found here locally, but the dog lived literally 3 streets away. The Irish setter lady with the 4 Irish setters lived in Tongeren. So the press get hold of, wait a minute, we know somebody with a famous dog that lives in Tongeren in Belgium, Jules O'Dwyer. She must have Matisse must have something to do with it, yes.
Oh my goodness.
Cold-hearted killer. And you've got to laugh, because otherwise you'd go nuts, Beverley, because you think, well, where are they? I had the paper hanging in my weeks. So you couldn't go anywhere or get in a car outside. I was parking in the car park, climbing over the fence to get to my car just to not pass the press, because I can be polite. I'm contracted to the show, so I can't say anything anyway. Why would I? You know, why would I risk anything detrimental being said about the show or myself? I'm not going to talk to people who are just going to write what they bloody well want to write anyway. So there's no, communicating with them. They're not going to write what you want to write. So I stopped talking to press and I just dodged them. And I remember having a big discussion at the gate where I was very firm, and I was walking about in the garden and somebody waving and hanging over the 2-foot fence. And there was a whole sea of dogs around me, and I walked towards the fence to speak to them. And I said, sorry, you're going to have to leave me on private property. Yeah, can we just have an interview? No. And I said very politely and firmly, but they were quite insistent. How do you know that they can be quite insistent? And they were determined to take a photograph of my feet. Now, Matisse stood at my feet at that point, but we're behind a gate. You know, the green fencing, chain link fencing.
Yeah.
And I said, I do not want to give an interview. I've not arranged with you to have an interview. I'm busy working, and I'm certainly not going to make the time for you because I've had nothing. Every time I've given in, it's been another negative, another negative article, and I simply can't trust you. So no. Can we just take a photo of the dog? I said no, because I know what you're like. You're going to take a photo now of the dog on the other side of the gate, and it's going to be on the news headlines tomorrow morning. Matisse wins BGT, got the cash, and now in a cage because you're taking a picture of him behind a gate, which could be misinterpreted as if the dog's in a kennel when he's never been in a kennel in his whole bloody life. So yeah, I got very allergic to the press.
Yes.
And I sent them away with a plenary, and I said, because they're clicking away, whether you're saying it or not, they're clicking away, taking photos. I sent all the dogs around the house. I think there must have been 8 or 10 dogs out, and I sent them all around the house to the kitchen. So they run around the whole domain, and they scoot round to the kitchen on a day to work. So I send them out, and I send the people away. So they wait in their car for 3 or 4 hours. And I'm determined not to go out then. And I'm certainly not going to take any dogs out because we only want a picture of the dog. So I comes online later that evening and I'm on the front page again. And I thought, well, how is that possible? I've dodged it. I haven't given anything interview-wise. My whole argument was in as if I was the nastiest person because I was being very negative and saying, well, quite frankly, bugger off. And then there's a picture of the neighbour walking Matisse, an unidentified person walking Matisse. I thought, well, that ain't Matisse. But my neighbour 5 doors down has a brown and white border collie. So those reporters that were in that car have seen my neighbour walking his dog, thought that looks like Matisse, although it's a bit half the size. Take a photo of it, and that makes frontline headlines the next day. They were ruthless. And we're now 5 years ago. My daughter was 15, and which is a horrible age anyway. You're a teenager, and you're just finding your way in the world, and your mother is thrown on TV almost overnight. And we have a very low-key life, a low-profile life, and then all of a sudden everything's in the spotlight, and every time you answer the phone or the door, it's press. And she was literally hounded, followed to school, waited outside school for breaks to get a glimpse of her and ask her questions. And at 15 years old, yourself having children, they're not really open to being interviewed on at the front of the school. And I just felt it was unfortunately out of my control, and I like to be in control.
Yeah.
And that's something that you simply can't control. I could control anything to do with the program. There was anything you didn't like, you discussed it, you came to an agreement, and everything was easy. To deal with the show. It was only the press that completely put it onto a different level for no apparent reason, because there was no reason. You know, they all named Chase as being, you know, a cheat. But who was Skippy then? Well, Skippy wasn't Matisse either, but Skippy was also in the program. But why make a big deal about the second dog when there was actually a third dog in the whole picture? I still, to be honest, don't understand it.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it because the magician wasn't doing real magic. I mean, everything's entertainment. I mean, it's
of course, and his props aren't real, and the doubles aren't real. It's about television. To me, it was about making television.
And there was no attempt to conceal. It's just very peculiar, isn't it?
And like many people say to me, well, you know, I never go onto the film set with a dog that hasn't got a lookalike, because not every dog can do every action. But not every dog is allowed to work a lot of hours. So if a dog's been on set 2 or 3 hours and it's tiring and it needs a break, it's handy to have a double. Yeah. So for me, dead normal that, you know, my dog after Matisse, and he was born before the show, before the VGT, had already called my new pup Ditto for that same reason. Yeah. Because he's just got to be like Matisse. And I was hoping in the film world that, you know, Matisse is then 7 or 8 year old. Anything he can't do so great anymore, any action shots, then I could use the double dog to at a distance look exactly like him. Yeah. And that's completely normal in the film scenario, of course.
Definitely. So did the PR people from the show, did they have any way of fighting this? Because they were very supportive to me. They were very supportive. I can't say that they weren't. And they sent us somebody straight away, because somebody living in my home, just in case the press were really, you know, annoying, maybe not livable. They actually sent a representative from the show, and we stayed in our atelier here and lived here for a few days just to keep the press. And anybody came to the door alone, they took it all over for us, you know. They were very, very kind that way. And they kind of took all the blows for us in the first day. I think they were completely shocked by the whole scenario as well, to be honest. I don't think anybody saw it coming, which, you know, what the press made out of it. Have you ever considered joining the group Hacked Off? Because there's the number of celebrities that banded together when the tabloids got out of hand and started hacking people's phones. Because really, your story is a normal person who did nothing wrong having their life turned upside down for their titillation, basically.
Yeah.
And you know, you should have been the most joyful.
I would have liked to have enjoyed it for a little longer, than a few hours.
Yeah. But I think maybe you should. It's a good excuse to get in touch with Hugh Grant. Anyway, but just sort of because really, this is what was wrong with the media.
I don't know how you would stand contractually wise, and certainly with the show that you're tied up with all sorts of things to protect the company as well, of course. I wouldn't want to make waves, to be honest. I'm not that kind of person.
It's just lucky you're strong, though, because imagine if it was somebody who was you know, on the edge, and this would have really, I mean, it's more than some people could have bared. I mean, it would have pushed someone over the edge, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And these are, you know, it's a show where it does catapult people from their normal life.
From being normal people to being, yeah. And like I say, you know, my work and working in film has been kind of a buffer for that. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't all wide-eyed and in my stride. Luckily, I had that background, but not everybody has got that, of course.
I mean, they could have really done terrible damage to somebody who was vulnerable, and that's the. It just seems that the story is more important than anything, and it wasn't a story, but it was a headline. It was a pun, wasn't it? Because they could do.
And I was kind of just disappointed in the press. You know, I was pissed off at my mother because she's read the Daily Mail for 20 years. And I said, you cancel that straight away. I was completely disappointed in the press because I always, you know, you always hear, don't believe what you read in the press.
Yeah.
But of course, you presume that the press are at some stage going to at least cover the basic story and get out what you want to talk about. And you're not, something like that you can never anticipate. Something like that I would never anticipate. Giving an interview and just being yourself and kind of enjoying that moment, going on breakfast TV, being tired, just completely knackered, but elated. And one simple little interview, and your next interview an hour later, you're already confronted with a whole lot of press throwing accusations at you. And I was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, where did this come from? Had I not been stronger part, you know, in character, I would have been out of the room in tears by then. Thinking, and I had a very good support system. You know, I had people from the show around me. I had my own assistants with me. So luckily, I had a buffer at that time. But afterwards, getting back to normal lifestyle, you know, the only thing I regret is it stopped me from achieving the one thing I did want to do. Was I wanted to get my dogs involved in a TV series. The offers don't come in when you're big negative press like that. You don't get offers like that when you've been that negative in the press. You don't want to hire anybody that's, you know, a scoundrel or a cheat. You know, and simply stuff that's made up. And that's the unfortunate thing. Like I say, I can shake it off because number one, the check cleared, you know, I got paid.
Yeah.
So that was already a bonus. Yeah. And like I say, I was living a good life before I did DGT. So I wasn't disappointed to come back to doing my own thing and making my own choices what I do, you know, professionally. It's just the downside of I wouldn't have wanted to travel all around England or anywhere and hauling my dogs from show to show because I think it's nice to do now and again and deliver pension, but it's quite a hard slog for your dogs. And you know, I'm not a circus act at the end of the day. So I would have liked to have done some nice gigs, but the only thing that I really regret is not getting my Woof series, you know. Yeah. I worked with the dog that used to be Eric on the Woof series. I've worked with that dog until it got a very old dog. She was actually called Judy. And she was in a series when I was a child or younger. She was in a series on BBC TV. And this little boy changed into a dog, you know, and this was a series that was on every week, and it was just a lovely kids series. And I could have just imagined Matthew having the skills, and my other dogs being able to have other parts in it.
Yeah.
And you know, making a fabulous kids series, and having all the dogs that were suitable to make these fantastic little stories that kids would love, you know. Kind of the new Lassie series, you know, but then with modern day dogs and dogs that people can relate to. Yeah. So that's the only thing really. If you say, have I got regrets? Not at all. I'll do it again tomorrow. But that's the only thing that could have come out of it that I would love to have come out of it that didn't because of the press, unfortunately.
But you never know. It might still happen because it's a. You know, it is a brilliant.
The problem is, of course, the time is gone with Matisse then, you know. He's an old dog, so, you know, that story is an old one. He's got to do it all over again with a new one or one of his first one.
But you do have a lot of talented dogs, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Who have you got at the moment? Tell me your current. How many dogs have you got at the moment?
12.
That's quite a lot.
A lot of old dogs, like I say. I think the Beverley Cuddy Chihuahua and so we're about 14 now. I do like to rescue now and again. Of course, Skippy with the 3 legs is also a rescue dog. I always will have German Shepherds and Border Collies because that's certainly for the sport and you know, my pleasure. I love my Shepherds.
Yes.
I will never be without a brown and white Border Collie. I've had them 25 years and I will have them till I can't have them anymore. I have a fetish for shelties. I've no idea why. I bought one sheltie for the sport and it was completely crippled. It had such bad hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia. It cost me about $5,000 in the first year to have it operated and everything so it could walk pain-free for the rest of its life. It's now 11 years old, never done a day's work in its life, and completely besotted with me. It's my constant shadow. So I have quite a few shelters, but mostly rescues, one with a heart defect. And something actually happened to me 3 weeks ago, by the way. I was actually, because everybody in your circle of friends, because you're doggy and you've been in dogs for a long time, everybody in your circle of friends contacts you when they've got a problem or a problem with the dog, or they want the dog, or they want to get rid of the dog. You think, well, Jules will know somebody. So my sister-in-law has been promising herself for a long time when she stops and does less work, she wants a dog. So I was given, because I'm the family dog trainer, and if she gets the wrong one, it's only going to fall on me anyway, Beverly, because then I have to train it anyway. So I thought, she just wants a little dog. So I started putting out feelers, looking for a small dog suitable for my sister-in-law. Just a little crossbreed, a little rescue, want to do some good and rescue something out of the shelter. I got her a perfect dog. Problem is, I can't come anywhere near those places because at the same time, I always see that little sad thing in the background and I say, what's that? And that's fatal.
Yes.
So 3 weeks ago, my sister-in-law got a lovely, fabulous little dog. I was very, very happy with it. And I came home with a blind and deaf kind of crossbreed. And we kind of felt it was a bit of a message from Skippy because we lost Skippy last year. And the same lady that I got Skippy off, you know, I saw this dog there and thought, well, who is going to take that on? It's a little collie mix and it sees very, very a small amount out of one eye. Other eye is useless. It doesn't hear anything, so you've got to work with signals, you know, to give it any kind of quality of life. Who's going to take that on? It's going to end up getting, you know, sleep. So she came home with us. And it's the naughtiest thing I've ever had. And it's fallen completely in love with everybody here, and everybody thinks it's wonderful. And it's absolutely, you know, high maintenance with its handicaps. But, you know, who knows? The next Skippy. Skippy never had to work more than 10 minutes in his whole life, and he did all right. So yes, I have. We've kind of got the old and the disabled section, and then we've got the proper work dog. So anything else in between. But like I say, there's the beauty of working from home. I'm always home with the dogs around you. So it's a bonus, an extra one now and again. I've been saying all year, no more dogs. We've got so many that are getting old and we're going to lose so many dogs in the next couple of years. And I really wanted to go down a bit in numbers. But no, yeah, there's always room for an extra little one.
Oh. Did I see you had a horse as well at some stage?
I actually trained the first guide mini horse in Europe, just in between what I was doing with everything else. And certainly after the BGT thing, then I lost Chase. And that was quite a blow because he had a heart tumour I didn't know about. I was filming in Poland and I was using Matisse and Ditto in this film, and I decided that, to be honest, normally Matisse and Chase would have gone on a film shoot. But Ditto was a young dog, that's Matisse's understudy. And I thought, it's in Warsaw, the flight's not long, it's only an hour on the plane. It'd be a good experience for the young dog working alongside Matisse. And Chase had just done an international show and won it, the Open European Championship in the field of music. So we've been up, up to speed. And then I thought, I'm leaving home for the rest. You won't like it being left behind. Certainly not if Ditto's going in place. So I took Matisse and Ditto to Warsaw, and I wasn't there 3 days before my Chase collapsed unexpectedly at home. And we had a week to get used to the news that he had a heart tumour. He was only 9 years old that he had a heart tumour, and it we were going to lose him. There was nothing that we could do operable-wise or anything. So when I came home from Warsaw, I spent literally 48 hours tied to the dog. And that, to be honest, gave me a real life dip, not like the BGT dip, a roller coaster of all that crap. That was a bring it on home, lost a dog that you've got, such a relationship with. Matisse and Chase were, we'd been everywhere for 10 years together and done everything, lived out of each other's pockets and lived and breathed the same air. And, Chase was a real mama's boy. So I took a dip in that, and I didn't want to do dog dance anymore, although I had Ditto doing very well, and Matisse was, of course, in his house class and whatever. I didn't feel like it anymore. The buzz had gone out of it for me. And I'd always said, if I stopped with dogs, because I came from horses at first, right? Every dog trainer has a history of whether they've started with something else. I've always had a fascination for horse training too. And I've always promised, when I retire and I don't train guide dogs anymore, I would love to be able to train a guide horse. And I've seen it in America, and they do little mini ponies and mini horses. I'd love to have a go of it. And it was my wife, actually, when I was in this period where I was in a bit of a dip. And she said, why don't you, instead of putting that off, you're doing guide dogs now, if your hobby's going to be the one that drops off, and you're going to take a couple of years out for a hobby, why don't you push that dream up and get yourself a little mini course and train it to be a guide horse? So it was her fault I did that. So yes, we trained Dinky up to be, and he was actually recognised as the first working guide horse in Belgium. For a client that used to have a guide dog for me, worked 15 years. Oh, she lost it at 15 years.
Oh.
And she saw me on TV with the horse training in the supermarket, recognised my voice because obviously she's a blind client, recognised my voice and phoned me. We hadn't spoken to each other for 10 years.
Oh.
And she said, do you remember Zaina? I said, yeah, golden retriever, went to Brooklyn. Yeah, that was my dog. Do you remember me? It's Monique. And she said, I've just heard your voice on the TV and I know that horse is for me.
Oh.
So, but to be honest, I wanted to teach my horse the skills of the guide work because I quite fancied using it as a demo.
Yes.
Because when you go to events, you don't like people to walk with your guide dogs in spay because you bugger them up.
Yeah.
And you don't want people, all day at an event hanging on the guide dog's harness when you don't know what they're doing or putting the blindfold on. It's very hard on the dog if the dog's not really stable. To be honest, we tend to use dogs that have retired early for one reason or another that can do good sound basic course. You use them as a bit of a demo dog. Then I thought, of course, you've got 20 years use on that.
Yes,
and
true.
Also, it's much more stable than a dog in these kind of show or events, places and atmosphere. So that was where the horse came from. So I ended up promising it to the client, but it was supposed to be staying here as my trick farm.
Oh well, maybe more horses in the future.
I don't know. One of those things. You've got to have enough hours in the day as well.
That's true. But you mentioned TV work. What I've seen your dogs in. I think it was a beer commercial that was a really Yeah. What's the most? What would people have seen your dogs in? Give us a clue on some of the things that you've
of course, most of the things that I do are shot here in Europe. So we've done a lot of we've done Stella Artois campaign 2 years running. I actually, and even if my dogs aren't on screen, I actually have the Visa dog in training 3 or 4 times a year that does the Visa commercials every year. I train a lot of the cats for the Shiva and for the Shiva commercial and the white gourmet cats.
Wow.
And I also train the Westies for the Caesar commercials.
Gosh.
So there's 4 Westies that take part in the commercials, and we all kind of reside now and again with me. He comes 2 or 3 months at a time. At one stage, a couple of years ago, Academic Animals, their Westies for the Caesar commercials were all getting a bit older. And when you're taking when they're shooting a close-up feeding shot, or you see everything, the quality of filming now is tremendous.
Yes.
So you see if the dog's missing a tooth or he's getting a little bit of old, looking old in the eyes. Then they want to use a younger, vigorous dog. So they were noticing they needed another backup for the Westies, but the Westies are quite highly trained. They retrieve really good and they can be directed at distance and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So he asked me, will you buy me a puppy and train it up with all it needs to do to be a Westie for the commercials?
Yeah.
So they're all, like I say, they've all been here at one point or another. And I have all the current ones regularly. I have another one coming back in September for the winter training when they're not busy. So it's not just my own dog to do for that. But now and again, you just get a fantastic commercial. We did the nicest one I've done for ages was a granola cookie commercial, just because it's a really fun commercial where the dog is kind of acting like the handler, and the handler is acting like the dog on an agility course.
Oh wow!
And it was shot. I have to send you the link for dogs today. It's for doggy people. It's brilliant. And it was made in Paris, and we were 2 days there filming it. But some of them, you've just got a nice memory filming it. Not everything you do for the film. Sometimes you're away a long time, and you're 4 days working on the film shoot, and then you see a 20-second clip for an advert, and you think, I spent all week doing that. And television is sometimes disappointing in that way. Not every film anymore is just written around the animal like it used to be.
No.
Things are done on computers, and I'm very lucky that there's still a lot of work going on for film dogs, really, or talented dogs. Because almost everything can be done with the computer nowadays.
Was it one of your dogs that did the commercial that was for not leaving dogs in hot cars? There was. Yeah, that was so.
That was also my piece. That was lovely, and we shot it in Spain, and we had to put big lights up to make it look like a hot day because it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was actually an insurance campaign for a Danish firm, and we were shooting in Spain, and we had French actors, and it was like United Nations on the set, people from everywhere, and it didn't really make sense. But when I actually saw the commercial, it's made a lovely commercial, and it's been used for years.
Yeah.
And the actual campaign was in when people had problems. If they saw a dog in a car, they were frightened to break a window.
Yes.
And certainly in Europe, people want to act, but they daren't do any damage.
Yeah, it's scared to break the windows.
Or people will call the police, and it'll be them that are at fault.
Yeah.
So this insurance firm made this advert to say that if you see a dog in need, we will cover the damage.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
So it was kind of a nice uplifting commercial. But like I say, it's been tagged every year that the weather gets hot, just because it's a nice commercial, although it's for another country. It's just a nice commercial about a reminder for people not to leave dogs in hot cars, and it's so easy to do it. But it happens every year.
Proper dog acting going on in there, though, because it really, Matisse was very convincing. And I think that's so hard to actually.
He actually went through a whole bucket of egg whites. I whipped up egg whites for the broth on his plate, like he'd been breathing difficulty and he was making bubbles. And every time, by the time I got him settled and we placed all the glass where he wanted it to be, you know, for the shot, by the time he zoomed in on the dog, his whole face is clean again because the little dog had cleaned it all off because he liked eggs. So we kept putting the dog in the shot, getting the actresses right. And then I was saying at the last minute, I'm going to move in at the last minute, put all the egg white around his mouth and move out. So we had people in the props whipping up egg whites. Go get me some more eggs, you know.
Behind the scenes. I think I saw that commercial before we actually spoke. I think that because that was a long time ago, wasn't it? That commercial.
Yes, and I think you wanted to use the link or something on your. Would that be on your Facebook or something, or in the magazine even?
I think it was in the magazine because we were around that time. I think we were launching "Don't Cook Your Dog" as a campaign, and this commercial was. And
then I mentioned I'd just coincidentally done a nice, although it was still at the country, I'd done a really nice.
Well, I think
did you not try and get permission to use that in your campaign? Did you not?
We did. I think we in the end, I think we just kept showing links to it. I think we ran out of steam on it really because it was one of those things where it got bigger and bigger and bigger, that campaign where all the charities were helping, and it was one of those things where I really expected one of the charities to take the campaign on. I didn't expect it to be my campaign. And it grew out of all proportion. And in the end, we gifted it back to the Kennel Club. And the Kennel Club have now owned that campaign. But I think there'd been 2 really horrific deaths of police dogs. And that was the sort of thing that people were still thinking it was okay just to nip into the shops for a couple of minutes, and they didn't realise how quickly things heated up.
Well, to be honest, while children still die in hot cars.
That's right, yeah.
Where are we going with dogs? You know, if people can think, well, they're sleeping, I won't be a minute. It's a shame. You don't want, you know, the kid's been crotchety all morning, they finally fallen asleep in the car. I'll just nip in and get a couple of things. Because if you wake them up to take them in, they're crying again. So you understand where all that's coming from. Yeah, it's easily done.
It's one of those things that, especially if people are a bit tired as well, because you make mistakes and
multitasking and doing too much and working. You know, we've been a long way from a situation where the wife stayed at home and the husband went out working. Everybody needs to work nowadays to maintain any kind of income, and people have got to multitask, and mothers have got to multitask and combine kids with work and bring them to daycare. And it's happened here also. It was only last year where somebody dropped their child at school, their husband at his work, drove to her work, parked the car in the car park, went to work, and had forgotten all about the child that was asleep that should have been dropped at the creche on the way in, and they found it dead in the afternoon because it was in a hot car all day. And I mean, how do you go on after that, after something like that? Like I say, if it still happens with children, just because people are busy with 101 things at once.
It is. Life gets more and more complex, especially in now we've got a pandemic to worry about. How has it affected you? Have you, because I suppose most competitions off at the moment, have you been doing
almost every competition and a lot of filming. I've done no filming really to speak of this year at all. Everything that was planned at the beginning of the year got pushed up to 21 at least. Of course, traveling with the lockdown was a problem, although I living in Belgium and working in Holland, I still can go to clients or go, you know, if I need to swap dogs or take a dog in or go and collect another dog, I can have permission to do that. But traveling on a plane or a boat, you know, it's not a good enough excuse. And what I wanted to do in a pandemic to take a dog onto a sunset, I quite understand that. I wouldn't want to have travelled in that period either. But it didn't really affect me greatly in the first week, but I was missing some skills. I train also assistance dogs for people in a wheelchair, not only blind people, but just people physically impaired, or blind people that are physically impaired, dual dogs. But they have to work quite a lot in supermarket kind of backgrounds, and obviously it's not appreciated to go in these extreme times, to go in and train in the store with your dog. They want you to pay with your card so that you're not passing any money. They don't want you to come with your golden retriever up to the checkout and your golden retriever to bring your purse to the checkout, jump up at the till and drop it onto the lap of the, that can't happen anymore. But my golden retriever can't put that card sideways against the machine either to pay. They might be clever, but they ain't that clever. By the time they've had it 3 times in the mouth, they've either swallowed it or it's cracked in half. So I found some things really difficult. Well, we've got to say it. Some of that is going to have to be done when they're with the client. Some of the final touches, we can do a lot of basic, but it was normal for me to be able to walk into every store. I could sneakily pass a shelf and put an article out of my own pocket on the shelf, and then walk back down the same aisle and ask it to find that thing. So it's not touching another product. I can put my own product there. But like I say, you've only got so many minutes in the store. You're only allowed half an hour shopping. It's got to be for necessity. Even now, we've got our second lockdown now a bit.
Are you in another lockdown? Oh, dear.
We're having another lockdown at the moment. We've gone down to having 15 people in our bubble. Every individual was allowed 15 contacts at one point when they lessened things again. And now they've reduced it drastically to a whole family unit is only allowed 5 steady people, 5 steady contacts. So if my daughter's got a boyfriend and I've got a colleague, when you've all got one person, that's you, and you're not allowed to see anybody outside that bubble. And those people that they're in your bubble, so they have to count you in their bubble. So they've really drastic measures now, because Antwerp is full again, even as close as Genk to us. It's all the hospital numbers aren't building up yet. But of course, everybody that's been away on holiday are reinfecting everybody. And as soon as we started lessening the laws, it's just a shame for so many people that really stuck to the letter. They did everything properly. And there's only a small category of people that just flout that and say, I don't have to social distance and I don't have to do this. And those are the people that are bringing it home to grandparents and other people and infecting others, unfortunately. So they've had no choice but to take some of the restrictions that they've loosened. They've now pulled it all back. As from today, the bubble of 15 has now gone down to 5. There's no travelling unless you have to do. They haven't necessarily closed the borders, but you'd have to have a downward reason for going over the border. To go and get a loaf of bread over the border is not feasible anymore. So I find training my work, and my work still goes on. It's very difficult to teach a dog social distancing, because a guide dog is used to. I take it to a crowded place normally to teach it to go with the flow of people traffic. Does not get panicking when it's on a market where there's legs and people and fans and kids and everything, and they've got to kind of filter through all that and keep the person safe that's attached to them. So you teach them people skills, people trafficking, but I can't do that with the social distancing. And again, I wouldn't want to, because you don't want to get close to anybody. But when a young dog is in training, quite often purposely bump somebody on the shoulder, because the dog feels that with the jolt and the harness. You say, ow! And the dog thinks, oh, I was too close. And he learns from it. So even those simple skills you can't really practice whilst the pandemic's going on. But, so it is, you've got to, as a trainer, I see that as it's a challenge, because you have to find out other ways of putting those skills into your dogs and putting those responsibilities into your dogs. And at the end of the day, if you can't make guide dogs in this period, then you make assistance dogs, because if you can't do enough work on the streets, you can do enough work in the home, and you can adapt the skills. So there's always another solution. There's always somebody helps at the end of the day.
Gosh.
But it's all a bit frightening. It's all starting up again, I feel. I don't know how it is in England now.
Well, I think we've just everyone was being quite well behaved, and then we got good weather, and then I think it seems to be going around the world that you get a bit of good weather, and then you get a load of people out protesting about things, and then people would go on holiday, and it just all goes out the window, and it's just like people have,
I can't imagine why you would want to go on, why you can't miss a holiday for a year.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of people have been caught out. They all went to Spain, and now they've got to be quarantined for 2 weeks when they get back. And I think they're going to really. I just think that it would probably have been easier to say no, only essential travel. For a bit longer.
I can't understand why they loosened it so quickly, to be honest, because Spain was still a hotbed for the virus. They haven't solved it in their own country. So why, even if they opened the borders, you've got to remember they're all reliant on the tourist trade. All these countries are reliant on the tourist trade. So they don't want a complete lockdown, and like here, the restaurants and things have all opened like a month ago, and now they're all getting cancellations, because anything that was planned, any party above 5 can't go on anymore.
No, we'll probably get in the same situation. I was in
the only difference is in England they don't give out spot fines. They don't fine people like they do here. If I'm walking down my street without a mask on, I get an on the spot €250 fine. If I go into the store without a mask and I am served, I get a spot fine for €250, but the person serving me in the shop is fined €800.
Wow. Well, that would certainly make people behave.
In England, for sure. Yeah. But the problem is you've got to manage, haven't you?
Yeah. We're just not very organised. But I think the worrying thing is, like I was in Woking for the first time today, which is our nearest big town. Is it a city? I don't know. But it's the the booming place, and there were lots and lots and lots of people, but all of the restaurants were shut, and apparently they've shut for good. They've gone, so they're not coming back. So I think that the government's really sort of nervous that the economy is not going to recover from this. And
no, I don't feel either. And I think it's very difficult, because when it first happened, they were supported and they were given, they were certainly covered for some of the set costs, the rent or the hire or whatever, or the maintenance. Here also, they were given a basic, if they had to close, they were given a basic income to cover some of the costs that they would have, whether they were open or not. And that went on. Of course, now they've said you can open, and that they lose that. They don't get that anymore. They don't get any supplements anymore. But now they've made the restrictions stronger again. So if anybody had booked a restaurant table for 10, they've now had to cancel it, because people are allowed to come together in a group of 10. So these restaurants and bistros or any kind of a place like that is now getting constantly, reservations that gets cancelled. People aren't coming. They're still allowed to open, but there's no business.
Yeah.
But they've also got no assistance. They've got no support anymore.
No.
So now they've got the same cost without help. Only people aren't coming and dining and having parties and At first they said you were allowed events, and now they've pulled that back as well, and said you're allowed to get married with only 25 people, social distancing from each other. Well, why wouldn't you just put it off for a year and wait for things to steady out, you know? But people still want to get married in this year, and they still want to have parties, and they still want to have communions, and I can't understand why it's so urgent this year, but why you can't put the general health situation first. Let's all be calm and put things on hold for one simple year until we get a vaccine.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get a vaccine, but it's nothing's certain, is it? That's the thing. I think we're in unprecedented times, and it's really. Well, I quite liked the original first lockdown where you started to value the small things, being safe.
Yes, and you were. It was a big reality check from how you got so involved in life that you didn't take the small things for granted anymore.
Yes.
And you even appreciated your family and friends and the people around you, and you know, your dogs. They became more important.
Dogs.
Than the rest.
Yeah, really did.
The only thing that I was at the same frame of mind in the first 2 months, because it's done everybody good. You realised that it was good in people. People were actually, you know, being heroes, real day heroes, and helping other
the
people.
Community. Yeah,
and it was all wonderful. It was wonderful, and clapping nurses and all the rest of it. I was a bit scared that it was going to have a big impact on the animal situation, because people got scared with the 2 cat stories.
Oh yeah,
of cats and dogs being able to transmit it.
Yeah.
And somebody had made the point to me from well, if a cardboard box is live for 5 days, if somebody's touched it that's carrying COVID, if they put that box down, it's going to be another 5 days before it's safe for you to touch it, because you couldn't transmit it that way. So the question was to me, if somebody with COVID-19 strokes the dog, loves the dog, kisses the dog, they've had the face on the dog, and they've had, you know, particles of spit on the dog or anything on the hand, and the dog then comes back to me and I'm petting the dog. Can the dog can carry it just like a box.
Yeah,
it sounds reasonable, but then you start to worry about how many idiots will panic and get rid of the dog. And a lot of the shelters were inundated with dumped pets in the first 2 months. Because we had a cat. I don't think you will have covered it as well, but that there was a cat scare. That a cat was been proven to be having COVID, and then there was a second one. The cat was actually tested for COVID-19 and came up positive. So I thought, if we do that with a dog, then we're really in trouble, because people are just frightened, aren't they? People are just frightened.
Yeah, but I think now they've stopped being frightened. And
almost too much. Yeah,
on the other way, they're now thinking it's you know, it's just been an exaggeration, and that's the problem, is that it was eroded, that natural caution, and now people are taking risk, and
it's hard to imagine that they've forgotten all those horrible images on the news of the wards and people lying on the stomachs in intensive care, and people that have lost loved ones, because how many thousands of people have died through it. You would think it would be hard to forget, really, wouldn't you?
But people, I don't know, they move on, don't they? And that's the thing. They think it won't be them. It's always going to be someone else.
Unfortunately,
I don't know how it is like herding cats, isn't it? Really, I do worry that the politicians, they're not experts in control and manipulating people's behaviour. I mean, we need a few dog trainers at the helm, I think, to reward people for the good behaviour, and you know, because at the moment we haven't got we're not telling people off when they're doing it wrong, when there's hardly anyone ever getting into trouble, but equally there's no reward for the good, apart from survival.
when there are punishments, you seem like they're punishing the people that have been trying the hardest.
Yeah.
Because the ones that are, screwing it up for everybody aren't tackled, are they?
No.
Like my parents that haven't been out the house since the beginning of March, in their 80s, and my brother bringing the groceries to the doorstep. They're wondering if they'll ever see the light of day again, the second and the third book. I mean, you think, well, what's it all been for if it's never going to be safe for them to mix with people again? Or,
I mean,
scary,
it's a horrible thought that forever we will be socially distancing and wearing masks. Because that is a possible reality, that we never do move on from this, because
and also, I think the one thing that scared me the most at that time, my daughter was away as a boyfriend, so she's a town further, had to make a decision: does she come home? How long is lockdown going to be for? Or is she going to stay at the boyfriend? And in that way, she's locked down there and can't get back home. You've got to make decisions. But also my parents, I thought, well, if one of them gets sick and has to go to hospital, not only can you not visit them, but imagine if something worse happens and they died. I can't even go home to a funeral. I can't visit it,
No.
It was all very scary from me being, further away, of course. But even the people that were close by, you couldn't visit, could you? You weren't accepted on. Many people have died lonely and scared in the hospital ward, purely because they're not allowed to be visited. Thank God for Skype, but is that enough at that moment?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to say goodbye to my mother watching her being intubated on Skype.
No, it's
not my idea of no. So no, it is very scary. But I think we're going to have to just get tough and tough it out until there is some other options. But I think it's going to become a daily life to be wearing a mask everywhere you go. I think you have to do to protect yourself. I think it has to come from yourself nowadays. I've noticed so many people that you do your best to socially distance and they don't respect it. You stood in the store and somebody brushes past you and you say, excuse me, there's a room, why is that necessary that you come so close to walk on the other side of the aisle then? And people are just now really ready for a fight, of course, because you just feel like, well, now it's loosened up to do a bit more. But it's really hard.
It's a bit of Darwin at work, isn't it? That people are seeing that it's oppressive being told to wear a mask. I mean, it's oh dear. I
think we're more used to it here. I think that people in England, and being English myself, of course, I think the mentality, I think if your government tells everybody or told everybody in the beginning, you're going to do this, everybody would have gone up and created a stink and said, no way, because you've always been brought up to be able to speak your mind and make your own choices. We're not a culture to be told what to do.
No.
And that's what I swear I see a difference here in Europe. We're told to wear a mask and we say for how long?
Yes.
Yeah. How long?
Well, it's I think we'll have to try and make ourselves a little bit more capable of surviving and being individual in our support of the mask. Because I must admit, I wore a mask today in Woking, and I was told when I went into the hairdressers for the first time for 100 years, for a very long time, and they thought it was very funny that I'd cut my own hair, and they said I didn't do too bad a job, but I wore a mask, and they said you don't have to wear a mask in here. I said, well, why? Because if I was coming into a shop to buy something, I'd have to wear a mask, and I'm going to be in here a lot longer. And they said, no,
she's working quite close to you.
Yeah, but they have to wear a visor, but they don't have to insist that the people there, because that's not going to work for very long, is it?
No,
somebody's going to come in with, and they're all going to catch it, and then they're going to be shot.
And they only have to sneeze and there's particles over the whole air, so even the visor isn't helping them.
No, the visor just traps it in there. So
exactly.
And they were saying, well, because of COVID, they're not allowed to make you a drink anymore. And I was going, well, that's a bit odd, isn't it? Because if you go to a pub, they're allowed to give you a drink. But in a hairdresser's, which is already terribly intimate, they can't bring you a glass of water. It just seems that they haven't thought this through. But
no, I just think they're not prepared for these things.
No, I mean, that's the problem, is that it was difficult enough running a country, never mind dealing with a pandemic. And some nations have done it better than others. And at some point, if the media in the good old days, the way it used to be, and the people who did exposed Watergate and various other things, if they actually all did their homework and will actually properly report how we all did in the future, it'd be interesting to find out whether or not we could have done this any better. But I just worry whether or not we'll ever have an investigative media anymore, because it doesn't seem, well, nobody's buying newspapers. So where are we going to get the committed people that actually worked on a real story and then told it, rather than just write headlines to sell papers? Because
exactly.
I think we've broken the record again here. We're on 2 hours 20 minutes. That's gone in a blink of the eye.
As long as I don't care about the Daily Mail, but as long as that still comes in the post, I'm happy. Hey, that was a miss. That was how many months did you not send out?
There was a gap. But I think we put March out really late,
right?
And then June out quite late, and July has been a bit late, and we're working on August now. So we will put an August out soon. I think we should just abandon the months and just put them out, because
whenever you can.
Don't know what day it is these days.
Exactly.
What does it matter? Dates are just some sort of construct. But
I purposely said it came today, and I've missed it like mad, because then you've got time to read and there's nothing to bloody read. And we did given 36 degrees on Friday, and I said, Friday I'm going to have 2 hours in my shady chair, and I'm going to be reading my book and enjoy it.
Oh, bless you, Jules. Is it true that when you were a kid you used to read Dogs Today? Or
I think Bernard was the first dog on your front cover. And I think we tried to find a copy at the time when we first spoke a few years ago. And I'm sure my mother will probably even have a copy in a drawer somewhere. But my dog was one of the first cover stars from the first magazine. And I had a big St. Bernard, and when I used to go out for a hack with a horse, I used to put her in the stable. And when I came back, she cleaned the whole bloody stable out. She'd eaten all the cat. And she was hanging on this stable door, with completely green chops. And you put it on the front cover, I think, in a way. I mean, when was the first issue? I would have been.
I'm trying to work this out, because I remember a blue background with a St. Bernard, but it wasn't the first edition, because we were.
It won't have been the first one, but it will have been one of the first. It will have been very early days.
It was quite early on in the nice glossy covers, because we used to be printed on terrible paper. But did it have a little boy with it? Was there a hug going on? I might be mixing it up. No. I'm going to have to get my back issues out and go through it.
And let me think about, I think you've looked for it before and you were missing it too, because it was a very early one. Because we must be talking, I'm now 54. I had the dog when I was like between 16 and 18. I would have started in the St. Bernard.
I think this might have
been...
So
you're talking at least 35 years ago.
This might be Dogs Monthly, which is our sister title that we own as well. But Dogs Monthly started earlier, and it was owned by a few different people, and we haven't got the full set because
that's why that will have been the loophole that we lost it.
And yes, they were always glossy, but they are the oldest magazine, and we rescued that when that was going under. But we haven't actually put out a Dogs Monthly yet since COVID. But I've got a weird idea for Dogs Monthly that I've got this. I worry about the good little breeders, the people that do everything right, try really hard, and are getting squeezed by every angle because they're being perceived as backyard breeders, where in fact the people who rear in the home are the elite. They're the artisan.
Exactly.
You don't want people rearing in sheds. So I want to start a group that gives accolades to the people who are doing it well and makes them heroes. And I was thinking Dogs Monthly might be the vehicle for bringing, like we've done with beer, that you have tiny micro breweries and you have the artistry is in doing it well and small, and that you have a network of good people all around the world who are rearing the puppies as healthily as possible, but also doing house training early and socialization and giving
them a proper good start.
Because just like you would for assistance dogs, you want them socialized,
health testing the parents, doing all the background, but then also putting in what you need to do before they're actually handed over. And maybe Dogs Monthly could be the umbrella organisation
for the breeders, because they've been made to feel dirty. That it's just been the way that it's been perceived by the public. As we made it so that people who had a litter from a dog they loved were seen to be irresponsible. So we've left it to all the really irresponsible people to breed in sheds. It'd be nice to sort of put some sort of organisation into the acquisition of dogs, so that the small people who breed very rarely have the benefit of joining together, so that the public can find them. Because that's the problem, is if you don't breed very often, you don't have any marketing. You don't
know, of course.
People don't know you're there. But if you're part of something that celebrates how rarely you breed, then you can match the public too. And I'd love to see lots of
making an elite club for people that want to join, and then announce that to people, so people would know how to find puppies. Probably maybe come in contact with other things on internet so quickly.
Yeah, and also make it so that people pass on skills of how to rear the litters better, and
share advice and what went wrong even.
And make it so that there is like a union, a club of like-minded people who are doing it for the right reasons, because lots of breeds are going to die out because the tiny that you need people who are aware of that. The variety needs to be kept and the genes need to be looked after. We need logical, sensible people to make decisions that aren't necessarily all about winning. You can win as well, but the majority of dogs end up as pets, and we want them to be happy and healthy, and people will pay the same money that they're paying now for dogs bred in sheds, because under lockdown prices went crazy here. I don't know if they were
madness.
And people couldn't keep up with demand, and people gazumping each other, and they really didn't care about provenance. They were just buying any dog, and that price tag, if that was to be for somebody that only breeds once every 3 years, maybe they can afford to take someone on to help with the socialization and the training if they charge more per puppy. And then the whole thing becomes a much more pleasant experience. You get higher retention.
Or they can afford to use all their vacation time to do it. To do it themselves and do it well. But then, my mate in training, she takes a month off work if she has a litter once a year. And she takes because obviously the first 2 or 3 weeks aren't too. She sleeps on the couch with the bitch and the pups every night. But the minute we get active, she takes a whole year's vacation to do the job properly. and pour their heart and soul into the books before they disappear.
And it'd be nice to, to make that something that is valued, because the local authorities tend to just be interested in the buildings, and people are getting bigger and bigger and bigger with bigger and bigger sheds. And we're hearing when they get stolen, these breeding dogs, there's no one there. These dogs are living lonely lives. And that's the next generation are getting dogs that have been not socialized in any way whatsoever. And
we're still scared and depressed, and we pass a lot of that down to the books as well. But the main concern, of course, is the health.
Yeah, and I think
that's like the one I rescued. That's it could be a factory dog. It could be from that kind of background. It's obviously been two males that shouldn't be bred together. Two males. Which is how you make a lethal white, what we call a lethal white. And that she doesn't hear anything and she doesn't see anything.
Oh, look. What a sweetie. Oh.
I mean, you can call her what you want because she doesn't.
No, that's the thing. Oh, she's gorgeous.
The only puppy I've had that you don't have to creep around when she's asleep because you can stand the door, she doesn't hear it. So there are advantages to it. You don't have to creep around.
Look at you. Oh, she's so beautiful. Oh.
She looks a little bit delicate yet. She has one eye that's not useful at all. And she sees, like, I have to have it tested yet, but she sees a little bit out of one eye. She can't focus when she's so close up there. But she's such a funny little thing. And she's not very well built. She won't be a great healthy dog. But I just think, you don't ever want to encourage things like that. Obviously, she was intercepted by the rescue. You don't want to encourage. I wouldn't want to pay a backyard breeder for that dog.
No.
She was rescued by the rescue, and I took her from the rescue. It's kind of, you don't want to encourage it, but she's here now. She's already been born, and she was at the rescue.
And you can give her the best life, and that's lovely. I mean, she's obviously thriving with you. That's lovely to see.
She's in the last 3 weeks. She's changed completely from the sad little handicapped dog to being the most ruthless little hooligan that we've got in the house.
Oh, Jules, it's been such a joy talking to you, and the time has just whizzed through.
It's flown,
I'd love talking to you, and I'd really love to, keep doing stuff, because I think there's more to come from you, Jules. I think you've I reckon I'm going to try and make you a founder member of my breeding thing, because I think your perspective from assistance dogs and the way you'd be a fantastic mentor to encourage people to do it right and do it properly, because we need people that have been there and done it and have
just
seen
got the experience.
And if we share it, then you never know, we might make it so that there's less dogs ended up bred by people who don't know what they're doing, because that's the problem, is people are
making it the norm again to go and get a dog at a normal household situation with a family around and the litter in the living room in the puppy run. That's normal again. That was normal 20 years ago. It's become abnormal. And now people pick up dogs in the car park out of the boot. And you think that's normal. Oh, it's delivered like milk on the doorstep,
Yeah, we I think in the latest issue, is it that issue or was it the one before, we had Deliver Poo, where it was like Deliveroo, because during lockdown the government let people deliver dogs. So people were just getting them
crazy madness.
Oh, this one's the one about Russia, because because all the dogs had been bought in Britain, the celebrities who wanted a puppy ended up buying a dog from Russia, and it lasted 6 days and died. And there's a big push at the moment to stop the bulk import of puppy farm dogs, because
it's not necessary. There's enough dogs to go around in England. Why would you need to import?
No. And I think that's the thing, is we really want to you need to be able to control the welfare. So importing dogs, because we've maybe have tightened things up so that there's less people breeding in that way, then you add a huge journey on top of it. It's just
I've never been in agreement from all these rescues that spend 10 days traveling through every continent, delivering dogs all over the place, and they come from Romania or Spain or wherever. Help the problem where it is. Donate to their funds and let them stay. Let them collect street dogs and spay them, just like the feral cats, and put them back out there. Stop letting them, encouraging the puppy litters to happen. Stop it, you know.
Yeah.
Stop it where the problem is. Instead of letting them have litters and then having more dogs to spread out, you know, these organizations that there's so many organizations importing rescue dogs from other countries just going into England. Well, what's happened to the RSPCA? You know, your own shelters are full of dogs. Why aren't people in England getting a free neutering or spay contract? Get a dog from a shelter in England, we'll spay it for you for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, make it worth the while to rehome a dog out of a current pound. Why are dogs in the pound in the winter, in a cold winter in England? And you're going to bring a greyhound from Spain or whatever, you know, when there's perfectly good greyhounds in the system in England as well.
Yeah. It's
by all means help Spain, help that rescue, but give them good kenneling, support their housing for what they have got, and spay and neuter on time.
I think people fall in love with one story but people fall in love with a photograph as well. And
exactly.
They don't realise that, you know, there's a dog that maybe has never lived in a society where there was rules, and that
so many bring such difficult problems with them. Biters, anxiousness, but real aggression. They're not. You can't pluck them from that environment and then set them with a standard family with 2 young kids and hope that everything's going to go okay.
That's the problem. Our brains turn to mush as soon as we see a puppy or a sad dog, and then I think that's the thing, is we really need things in place that make it easy for people to get it right, and less easy at the moment for people just to indulge and get things that are really not going to work out, because it damages families when they.
The old way that we used to do with the RSPCA, somebody came and they fell in love with a basset, and it looked cute, or a little puppy. We first had to have a home check. We couldn't purchase that same day, so you didn't get impulse buys, because we had to go and do a home check and have a chat with them anyway. So if they were really tied to getting that dog, they'd arranged the home check, they'd arranged to be there, and then we got the puppy afterwards. But for people who couldn't be bothered with that, went out through a side door and got a puppy in a different way. Yeah. So if you brought back the system and said, well, for every dog that you rescue from whatever rescue organisation, you have to have somebody officially home check, half of them are cancelled just for that.
Yeah, we don't like rules, do we, us Brits?
No, exactly.
Even when they're good for us. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to have to let you go, because I'm aware that
it's been lovely to catch up.
We have definitely broken the record, I think. But we've got so much to talk about, and thank you for not cutting me off of being a member of the press, because I am ashamed of those people that did that. That is just.
Well, I know that, and we've spoken many times, so the trust level was already there, of course. And my favourite reporter.
Well, if I could, I'd go and take it up with each one of them and tell them, you know, they should be ashamed. You never know, some of them may watch this and then maybe they will feel bad.
You never know.
Yeah, because they'll be ruining somebody else's life the next day.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Well, you and I, we rest knowing that we haven't hurt people, and I think that's
never exactly.
That's the thing. We
And
can
if you need any new cover babies, you know where to find one, don't you?
Yeah. Look, I'm sold. Yeah. Send us pictures. Send us pictures. Oh, it's so lovely to talk to you. And
we'll speak again soon.
Stay safe, please. We need you to be safe. Okay. All the best.
All right.
And
take care.
From me. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks again. Okay. Oh, I must